Stop scrolling for exactly 3 seconds. Don't skip this. Don't swipe away, because out of every video on your screen right now, out of every distraction competing for your attention, something made you stop on this one, something made you click, and if you think that was random, I need you to keep listening. Because what I'm about to tell you might be the exact thing your mind has been begging you to hear for weeks, maybe even months. This message was meant for you today, not tomorrow, not next week when you finally feel ready, not later when things calm down, today. Right now, while you're tired, while you're doubting yourself, while part of you is wondering if you're wasting your time watching this instead of doing something productive. Stay with me, because that voice in your head telling you to leave is the exact voice this video is going to silence. Somewhere right now, there is a version of you that gave up, that closed the laptop, that deleted the plan, that said maybe this just isn't for me and went back to a life that felt safe but slowly killed something inside. And there is another version of you, the one watching this video, still here, still searching, still refusing to fully let go, even when everything around you says you should. That refusal is not weakness. That refusal is the last thread connecting you to the life you were actually built for. And I promise you, by the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly why you couldn't let go, even when you tried. Here's something almost nobody says out loud. Most people don't fail because they aren't capable. They fail because they quit exactly one day before the breakthrough was supposed to happen. One more attempt, one more conversation, one more version of the plan, one more morning of showing up when it felt pointless. That's usually all that separated them from the life they wanted. Not talent, not luck, not some secret formula only a few people were given. Just one more round they didn't stay for. And the terrifying part is, you never get a notification telling you how close you were. There's no countdown, no sign flashing almost there. You just have to decide, in the dark, without proof, whether you're going to be someone who stayed or someone who left too early. So let me ask you something, and I want you to actually answer it in your head, not just let it float past you. How many times have you already almost quit on the thing that matters most to you? How many nights have you lain awake thinking what's even the point? And how many times have you gotten back up anyway? Even if it was quieter, even if it was slower, even if nobody clapped for you. If you're being honest, it's probably more times than you'd admit to anyone else. And that right there, that pattern of falling and rising again without applause, without an audience, without anyone checking on you, that is the actual definition of strength. Not the version they show in movies. The real one, the unglamorous, exhausted, still showing up version. But here's where it gets interesting, and I need you to really lean in for this part, because this is the part most people scroll past without absorbing. There is a difference between struggling towards something and drowning in something that was never meant for you. Struggle that's aligned with your purpose feels heavy, but it also feels alive. It keeps teaching you things. It keeps opening tiny doors even while the big one stays shut. But struggle that's misaligned, struggle in the wrong direction, feels like slowly disappearing. It feels like you're shrinking every single day just to survive it. If what you're going through right now is the first kind, the kind that hurts but still teaches you something new every week, then you are exactly where you need to be, and quitting now would be the actual mistake. If it's the second kind, the kind that's been draining you for years with zero growth, zero small wins, zero moments of feeling even slightly more like yourself, then maybe this video isn't telling you to push harder. Maybe it's telling you it's finally safe to walk away from something that was never actually yours to carry. Let me tell you about a moment that changes how most people see their entire timeline, once they actually understand it. Picture someone standing at the edge of what looks like total failure. Everything they built seems to be falling apart at once. The plan didn't work. The people they trusted disappeared. The thing they poured years into looks, from the outside, like it collapsed. And in that exact moment, from where they're standing, it feels like the end of the story. It feels like proof that they were never good enough, never meant for more, never going to make it. But here's the part they can't see yet, because you can never see it from inside the moment. That exact collapse, that humiliating, painful, confusing collapse, is actually the demolition phase. Before anything real gets built, the old structure has to come down completely. Not damaged, not dented, down, because you cannot build the next version of your life on top of the version that was already failing you. The universe, or fate, or whatever you want to call it, doesn't renovate. It rebuilds from the ground up. And that means the very thing that feels like it's destroying you right now might actually be clearing space for something your current mindset couldn't even imagine yet. If you've made it this far into the video, I want you to notice something. You didn't stop watching during the parts that made you uncomfortable. You didn't close it when it started sounding a little too close to your real life. That tells me something important about you. It tells me you're not actually looking for comfort right now. You're looking for truth, even when it stings a little. So I'm going to keep giving you truth, because that's clearly what you came here for. Here's the truth about timing that nobody explains properly. You are not behind. I know it feels that way. I know you compare your current chapter to someone else's highlight reel and feel like you're running out of time. But timing doesn't work in straight lines. Some people peak at 20. Some people don't even find their real path until their 40s or 50s. And once they do, everything before that becomes the foundation, not the failure. The years you spent confused, searching, trying things that didn't work, those aren't wasted years. They're research. They're the part of the story where the character learns what they actually need before the real mission begins. Nobody skips that part. Not the people you admire, not the people whose lives look effortless from a distance. They just don't post that part, so you never see it, and you start believing you're the only one who struggled this much before it made sense. Now, here's a turning point I need you to really sit with, because this is where a lot of people quietly zone out, thinking they already know what's coming. You don't, so stay with me. Most people think motivation is what gets them through hard seasons. It isn't. Motivation is a spark. It shows up when things feel exciting, when the goal feels close, when your energy is high. But motivation disappears the second things get boring, repetitive, or painfully slow, which is exactly when most goals actually get built. What gets you through the long, unglamorous middle isn't motivation. It's identity. It's deciding, on a quiet, random Tuesday when nobody's watching and nothing exciting is happening, that you are simply the kind of person who keeps going. Not because you feel like it, not because you're inspired, because that's just who you decided to be. Once you stop waiting to feel motivated and start acting from identity instead, everything changes. Because identity doesn't need permission from your mood. I want you to think back to a version of yourself from a few years ago. If that version of you could see exactly where you are right now, this exact moment, watching this video, still trying, still here, still refusing to fully give up, do you think they'd be disappointed in you? Or do you think they'd be relieved that you didn't become the person who quit? Sit with that for a second, because I think you already know the answer, and I think that answer is the reason something in you clicked play on this video in the first place. Here's another turning point, and this one might sting a little, but you need to hear it. Sometimes the reason things feel so heavy isn't because you're doing something wrong. It's because you're finally being honest with yourself for the first time in a long time. Denial is comfortable. Denial doesn't hurt. But the moment you stop lying to yourself about what you actually want, about what you're actually settling for, about what you're actually afraid of, everything suddenly feels heavier. Not because your life got worse, but because you finally stopped numbing yourself to how it actually feels. That heaviness you're carrying right now might not be a sign that you're failing. It might be a sign that you finally woke up, and waking up is always going to feel harder than staying asleep. At least at first. Let's talk about fear for a second, because fear is the real reason most people never even attempt the life they actually want. Not lack of ability, not lack of opportunity. Fear. Specifically, the fear of trying fully and still not being enough, because if you never really try, you always get to keep the fantasy alive in your head. The fantasy where maybe, if you had really gone for it, you would have made it. But the second you try with everything you have, and it still doesn't work out the way you hoped, that fantasy dies, and you're left facing the possibility that maybe you're just not capable. That fear is so heavy that most people would rather stay stuck and comfortable almost trying forever than risk finding out the truth. But here's what nobody tells you about that fear. The version of you who tries fully and fails will always grow into someone stronger than the version who never tried at all. Failure after full effort teaches you things comfort never can. It's not the ending you were afraid of. It's a doorway most people are too scared to walk through. If you're still here with me, if you haven't clicked away even once during this, I want you to notice how rare that actually is. Most people can't sit with anything uncomfortable for more than a few seconds before reaching for a distraction, but you stayed. You let yourself actually feel this instead of numbing it. That single choice, the choice to stay present instead of escaping, is the exact same muscle you need to build the life you keep dreaming about, because building anything meaningful requires sitting in discomfort long enough for something real to form. Most people leave the room the second it gets uncomfortable. You didn't leave this one. That matters more than you think. Let me tell you a story now, and I want you to really picture it, because this is the kind of story that changes how you see your own life once you actually let it sink in. Imagine a farmer who plants a seed that, according to everything he's read, is supposed to grow into a massive, towering tree. He waters it every single day. He checks on it every morning before the sun is even fully up. He protects it from the wind, clears the weeds around it, does everything right. And for an entire year, nothing happens. No stem, no leaf, just dirt. Anyone watching from the outside would tell him to stop wasting his time, to plant something else, to accept that maybe this particular seed just wasn't going to grow. He almost believes them. He almost gives up more times than he can count. But he keeps watering it anyway, mostly out of stubbornness at this point, not even hope. Then, in the second year, still nothing. Then the third year, still nothing. By the fourth year, most people would have completely given up. And honestly, most people did give up on similar seeds long before this. But somewhere in the fifth year, in a matter of weeks, that same seed shoots up 60 feet into the air, not slowly, not gradually, explosively. Because the entire time, while nothing seemed to be happening above the ground, that seed was building a root system strong enough to support what it was about to become. It wasn't dying during those quiet years. It was preparing. And here's the part that should hit you the hardest. If that farmer had given up in year 4, convinced it was hopeless, he would have missed the exact season everything was about to change. This is exactly what's happening in your life right now. In the areas where you feel like nothing is moving, you're not failing. You are rooting. And roots don't show up on the surface, which is exactly why so many people quit right before their own breakthrough season, simply because they couldn't see what was happening underground. I need you to pause on that story for a second, because I think a part of you just recognized your own life inside it. Think about the thing you've been working on that feels like it's going nowhere, the relationship you're trying to rebuild, the skill you've been practicing that still feels clumsy, the business idea that hasn't made a single sale yet, the healing you've been doing quietly that nobody else even notices. What if none of that is actually failure? What if it's just the root stage, and you happen to be standing in the exact season where it feels the most invisible, right before it becomes the most undeniable? Now, let's go somewhere deeper, because I don't want this to just be a nice story that makes you feel good for 5 minutes and then fades by tomorrow morning. I want this to actually change something. So let's talk about the real reason people stay stuck, even after hearing messages exactly like this one 100 times before. It's not because they don't understand the lesson. It's because understanding a lesson and actually living differently because of it are two completely different things. You can know, logically, that you should keep going. You can know that quitting now would be a mistake, and you can still wake up tomorrow and slide right back into the same avoidance, the same excuses, the same comfortable numbness, because knowledge alone was never enough to change a life. What actually changes a life is a decision made in a specific moment, followed by one small action taken immediately after, before the feeling fades. That's it. That's the entire secret. Nobody wants to hear because it's not exciting enough to sell as a secret. Decide. Act immediately. Before the motivation from this video disappears into tomorrow's noise, let's go even further, because there's something else keeping people stuck that almost nobody talks about honestly, and that's the fear of who they'll have to become. Not the fear of failing, the fear of succeeding and realizing they now have to live up to it. Because if you finally build the life you say you want, you don't get to complain about your circumstances anymore. You don't get to blame the economy, or your family, or your past, or bad luck. You have to actually become someone disciplined, someone consistent, someone who follows through, and that identity shift terrifies people far more than failure ever could. Failure lets you stay the same person with a sad story. Success demands you become someone new, and becoming someone new means letting an old version of yourself quietly die. That's uncomfortable. That's honestly kind of grieving a part of yourself. But it's also the only way forward, and deep down, you already know that. Here's a rehook, because I know somewhere around this point in a video, attention naturally starts to drift, and I don't want you drifting away right before the most important part. So let me ask you directly. What is the one thing, if you're brutally honest with yourself right now, that you've been avoiding because it scares you more than staying stuck scares you? Don't answer it out loud. Just let it surface in your mind. Because whatever just came up, that's not random either. That's the actual answer you came here looking for, even if you didn't consciously know it when you clicked play. I want to talk about the people around you for a moment, because this part matters more than most people admit. Not everyone in your life right now is meant to be in your next chapter, and that's not a betrayal. That's just how growth works. Some people loved the version of you that stayed small, because that version was easier to be around, easier to compete with, easier to feel comfortable next to. The moment you start changing, start showing up differently, start choosing discipline over distraction, some of those people are going to feel threatened by it, even if they never say it directly. You'll notice it in small comments, in subtle discouragement disguised as concern, in a strange coldness that wasn't there before. This isn't a sign you're doing something wrong. It's actually one of the clearest signs you're doing something right. Growth naturally filters your circle, whether you want it to or not, and learning to be okay with that filtering is part of the price of becoming who you're meant to be. And if you're sitting there thinking, but what if I try and I still don't make it? What if I do everything right and it still falls apart? I want to answer that honestly, instead of giving you an empty promise, because you deserve honesty more than false comfort. Yes, that's possible. There is no guarantee that effort always leads to the exact outcome you're picturing. But here's what almost nobody says clearly enough. The version of you who tries fully, who fails, and who gets back up anyway, becomes someone the version who never tried could never even imagine becoming. The skills you build, the resilience you develop, the self-respect that comes from knowing you didn't run from the hard thing, those don't disappear even if the specific outcome doesn't go your way. They carry over into everything that comes next. Nothing real is ever actually wasted, even when it doesn't look like success from the outside. Before we get to the ending, I want to give you one more shift in perspective, because this one has quietly changed the way a lot of people think about their worst seasons. We tend to measure our lives by outcomes. Did I get the job? Did the relationship work? Did the plan succeed? And when the outcome doesn't go the way we wanted, we label the entire chapter a failure, close the book on it, and carry the weight of that label into everything that comes next. But outcomes are only one way to measure a season. There's another measurement almost nobody uses, and it's this: who did you have to become in order to survive it? Think about the hardest chapter of your life so far, the one that felt unbearable while you were living through it. Now look at who you are today because of it. The patience you didn't have before, the way you read people now, the way small comforts don't shake you the way they used to shake other people. That version of you wasn't handed to you gently. It was forged in exactly the kind of season you're standing in right now, the kind that feels like it's breaking you instead of building you. And that's the trick of it. In the moment, breaking and building feel almost identical from the inside. You usually can't tell the difference until you're standing on the other side of it, looking back. So if today has felt like one more day of barely holding it together, I want you to reframe it just for a moment. You're not failing at life. You're mid-construction. And construction always looks like chaos before it looks like anything finished. No building in the world looks impressive halfway through. It looks like exposed wires, bare concrete, dust everywhere, and scaffolding hiding whatever it's actually going to become. Nobody photographs a building at that stage and calls it beautiful, but nobody tears it down at that stage either, because everyone understands that's simply what progress looks like before it's finished. Give yourself the same patience you'd give a building under construction. You are not the finished version yet. You were never supposed to be. Not today. Not at this exact stage, and that's completely fine. Now let me bring this back to where we started, because everything I've said connects to this one point. This message really was meant to reach you today, not because of some magical coincidence, but because you are clearly in a season where you're questioning everything, where you're tired of pretending things are fine, where you're one honest conversation with yourself away from either giving up completely or finally breaking through. And the fact that you're here listening this closely tells me which direction you actually want to go, even if part of you is scared to admit it. So here's what I want you to do the moment this video ends. Not tomorrow, not when you feel more motivated. Right now, today, while this feeling is still fresh and honest, I want you to do one small real thing toward the life you keep putting off. Send the message you've been avoiding. Open the file you've been scared to touch. Say no to the thing that's been quietly draining you. Say yes to the thing that scares you because it actually matters. It doesn't have to be huge. It just has to be real. Because the people who eventually build the lives they dream about aren't the ones who waited for some perfect, fearless, fully ready version of themselves to show up. They're the ones who took one honest step while still scared, still tired, still unsure, exactly like you are right now. You didn't find this video by accident. You didn't stay until this point by accident. Something in you is ready, even if the rest of you is still catching up. So let today be the day you stop postponing your own life. Not because it will suddenly be easy, it won't be, but because every single day you delay it is a day you're choosing to stay in a story you've already outgrown. You already know what you need to do. You've known for a while. This was just the reminder you needed to finally stop waiting for permission and start acting like the person you keep telling yourself you're going to become someday. Someday starts today, and today it starts with you.